Is this thing on? Oh my gosh. Hey, y'all. Okay. So I'm kind of out of breath as I've been trying to get this whole scenario set up to record today's monologue for you guys. And of course, it's called Quit Complaining. Today, I'm going to complain about complaining. And then I'm going to put the word quit in front of that. And that is something that can actually be quit. Quit complaining and move into action. So, oh my gosh, I'm out of breath. Okay, so here's everything that has led up to this monologue. First of all, I usually have the inspiration come in early morning, right? I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is what the monologue needs to be today. This is the raw version of Shelby's life of what's happening that I need to talk about today." And so anyway, the day has just kind of been going and going and going. And then I finally was like getting dressed. Okay, my day is going to start. Now what am I going to talk about? Well, all of a sudden, leave it to social media and opening up Facebook and seeing a comment on something that I'm going to talk about in a minute that really just send your energy and your emotional body into a flame where you go, "Oh my gosh, that's what I'm going to talk about today." And that energy like hits you and you're like a tiger coming out of the cage to go roar, and you're like, "That's what I'm talking about today. That's what I'm talking about today, bitches. That's it." And you know what? I don't drink beer. Okay, I don't do alcohol, right? However, I am going to do a frosty root beer today. This is like a treat because I do like root beer. Okay, so I guess I do beer. I just do root beer. It's of course no alcohol. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna drink my root beer. I'm gonna get into my Shelby Raw, and I have not eaten except a oh, I have an invitation from somebody. Okay, no, LinkedIn later. Okay, so I also have not eaten except I did have a smoothie from Smoothie King, which is my favorite place on earth. I always get the angel food. No, I don't endorse them. No, I don't endorse root beer. Okay, I'm just a human doing human things. So anyway, I bought these yesterday at Whole Foods. I have not had them. These cauliflower crackers. I don't know, y'all. I was just going through Whole Foods yesterday, had some inspiration, was looking at some crackers, and I thought, oh, well, I wonder if these are good. No, I don't endorse these cauliflower crackers either, okay? But I have never had them. So I thought, I'm going to be hungry on this video because I'm already like, oh my God. Oh my God, they're so small. Really? Oh my God. Are these like microscopic little crackers? I mean, let me put that up to the camera. I mean, I'm used to like Cheez-Its, like these are like, I'm gonna have to eat the whole box just to fill up. Oh, those are good though. Oh my God. This reminds me, oh my God, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when you go to church and you do communion and you take bread. That's literally like the size of these little things. Like you just go, like that's exactly what these things are. Oh my God, they're so tiny. Actually, but they have a really good flavor. I mean, I can put a whole stack in my mouth. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Well, that was a perfect intro to my quit complaining video, was to start out by complaining. Okay. God, I'm so tired. Oh my God. Okay. I'm complaining. It's perfect for a quick complaining video. Notice how I'm facing the manger picture. And there's Carlos, my Buddha. Carlos is a badass. Anyway, I figured I would sit in different places. Oh, that's Santa behind me. You see Santa? That's Santa. That's our life-size Santa in the hallway. So, I figured, hey, why don't I just sit in different places so you don't have to see the same background all the time. All right, so let's get on with this. Oh my God, these are good. Okay, stop it. Stop it, Shelby. Let me just put these away for a minute so I can talk. Okay. It's easier to take a sip of a drink than it is to chew. I'm so freaking hungry. Okay. So here's my monologue for today. Oh, and I'm wearing Buc-ee's. I'm wearing my favorite sweatshirt on earth because Buc-ee's, if you don't know what Buc-ee's is, get to Texas. It's my favorite place on earth. They have the best, cleanest bathrooms. That's what I love about Buc-ee's, and hot chocolate. Okay. But anyway, so here's the thing. Okay. So y'all know I'm married. Y'all know my husband is Joe. Or if you don't, now you know. And when Joe and I got together, I realized that he would complain a lot. And I realized that, why is he complaining? And this doesn't even have to do with Joe, even though it kind of even inadvertently has to do with Joe. But because this really has to do with somebody else, but it came through something of Joe. So I'm putting the puzzle pieces together in this monologue. So I hope you get something from it. But when I first met Joe, and I began realizing a pattern of his. Like, in order for him to move and create traction, plus he's a guy, so they do things different. He took on a pattern where he learned if he complained about something, that it would trigger or ignite a level of intensity in his body, right? Whether usually anger or frustration or irritation. That's pretty much like what it would be. So like if he's complaining, then he was complaining because he was either irritated, he was complaining because he was frustrated, or he was complaining because he was angry, right? And so I figured out what his pattern was all these years. Like, okay, so if he's complaining, then he's looking to have something move, right? He's looking to, knows how I even associated into the camera. I like sat forward, right? Because I was disassociated. So I like sat forward. So he would complain in order to get this traction, right? So he could have movement. Well, that's what his go-to was. Like, that's just what he did. So, of course, being with him all this time, being his wife, learning his patterns, then I realized, oh, wow, you need to take on like a whole other pattern, because complaining about something is exhausting and it doesn't get you anywhere. It just builds up. Yes, it builds up energy. Yes, I guess it can get you somewhere. But I mean, there's other ways that you can create movement. You don't have to complain to create the movement, because when you complain, you're really just sending off like an energy. And if you're not aligned in that complaint, and other people hear your complaint and they're empathic, or they have the ability to take on that emotion, then it affects them. And quite honestly, that's not appropriate to do. That's really not appropriate for other people in the ecology. Excuse me, I'm burping because I'm drinking root beer. Okay, and eating cauliflower crackers. But anyway, I can even taste that cauliflower. But anyway, I digress. So it doesn't really do anybody any good, like when you complain, okay? Um, unless you're complaining and it's doing good because you're not triggering other people in a negative way. You might trigger them in a more positive way that gets them into action different. Now, that might not even make sense, but here's what I'm going for. What does complaining actually do for a person? Does complaining actually solve a problem? Oh my gosh. Did you just see that? Where did my ring light go? Ah, where's my, what happened? Hang on. Is it even going to turn on? Like, how does this work? Oh, goodness. Hold on. That was really funny. We just lost the light. Oh, wow. This is like really hot over here. Oh, my God. This thing is like burning up. I wish you guys could feel how hot this is. It's like super, super hot. I must be like moving some intense. What would happen if I did it this way? Hey, it's a raw video, y'all. We got to go with it. Let me test this plug. Let me see what happens if I test. Oh my God. I can't believe how hot that is. Okay. That is so weird. Can you guys see me? Let's see. Hold on. Let's see what this plug does now. Look. Now you have a different vantage point. Oh my God. Please just let me get through this video. I must have been putting out a lot of heat. Okay. So sorry, you can't see Santa now. Now you're just going to see breathing. Just breathe over here. So maybe that's what I should do. I need to ground. Ground, Shelby. You're already 12 minutes into this video and I still haven't even like really gotten where I need to go. Okay. So I've realized that what does complaining really do? Like, where does it really get us? What are we trying to accomplish when we complain? Because complaining is a heavy energy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to draw up some negative feelings and emotions in order to create movement of complaints, right? Like, you have to go to a heavier, denser, darker space inside of your subconscious mind, inside of your energy body, inside of your physical body, inside of just everything. Like, you have to go to the well and you've got to extract that, right? So if you have the choice of complaining or the choice of positive perspective, like, why, or joy, okay, that's another, there's another one, then why choose complaining? Okay. So being married to Joe, he's a Gemini. Okay. He and I totally balance each other. It's amazing. I have learned so much from him because of how we have to balance, you know? And so I come from like little Palladian fairyland. Everything's great. Oh, let's all have a perspective. And, you know, can we just all be love? And then I marry an Italian that's got that mafia mentality that's like, you know, and he's a spade and I'm a spade. I mean, so it's like, oh my God, you know, but I look at his life and I can see why he had to develop the pattern of complaining because it was really a survival mechanism for him. It was how, because he was being drained so much from what I call evil witches, you know, their they're heavy emotional women, things of that nature. And he's a very strong, man in all of that. So when a man is getting bombarded by women who carry deep rooted emotional issues, but also deep rooted spiritual issues, then eventually that weighs on a man. And, you know, the only way he feels like he can get traction in order to push through all of that is to complain. So they can take on this complaining, because that's the only way, like, sometimes they know how to move it. So once I figured this out and what he was doing, I would catch him and I would be like, okay, so do we really need to complain about that? Or like, what are we doing here, babe? Like, why are we in this complaint mode? Like, what do you need to accomplish? Because if you just tell me what you want to accomplish, then I can take that and spin it up different, put some more, fairy dust and joy on it, and then you don't have to complain. Or do you just complain because you really need to feel something, like, because it's charging you up with something, and that's why you're doing it. And so he really kind of had to think about this stuff. So I can proudly say that over time, okay, as we've been together and we've done all this change work, and we've, balanced each other in different areas, that he rarely complains, okay, anymore. And when he does, I just kind of giggle, because at this point he's just kind of like blowing steam, or whatever. And but he catches himself now, because I've had all this time to be like, okay, you're complaining. Can you go complain elsewhere? Or I don't want to hear that. Like, that's not going to get us anywhere. Complaining gets us nowhere, because I'm done processing your complaints, right? Because if you complain and I'm your female and I pick it up, then I have to process this, right? So me having to process his complaints have been like few and far between. Okay. So this is what leads me to today. Now, we're coming up on, if you're watching this video, we're in December. Okay. And so we're, like a week and a half out from Christmas. And currently Joe does IT. He has an IT business. And so this is a really busy time of the year, because everything kind of comes in at once. And, he's running here, there, and everywhere with clients. And then, of course, with my business, I'm relaunching a whole big brand. And, so there's a lot of things that I'm doing. And then we're having Christmas parties this weekend. And then we're having Christmas. And then we're having New Year's parties. And, so there's all this activity, right, that's going on around the holiday season. Well, on top of all that, Joe is on the board of our HOA in our neighborhood, and I'm also the pool chair committee in our neighborhood. And this is a fairly, well, I don't want to say it's a fairly new, it's not a new neighborhood, but the section that we live in is pretty new. And it's expanded. So we've had builders in the neighborhood building. And so, excuse me. So the HOA board was not all homeowners yet until this year, because the builders were, I think it was this year, yeah, because the builders were still involved, right? Well, once the builders kind of moved out of the neighborhood, because so many homes sold, so now the homeowners can take over the HOA board, but we still have this management company. Well, Joe stepped in for a position because someone stepped down off the board. He stepped up. He got voted in. I volunteered to be the chair of the pool committee, because we've got to repair the pool and all this other kind of stuff in the neighborhood. And through this journey, I have discovered that, honestly, what an HOA is. Okay. Like, I mean, I always used to rent. Okay. So, buying your own house and moving into an HOA, which stands for Homeowners Association. And you have a board of homeowners, and they're basically working for free to manage monies that you pay in homeowners fees some places pay every month. Some people like us, we pay twice a year. And so this money goes into this fund for the neighborhood that actually helps water the grass, have landscaping, hang Christmas lights, take care of the amenities and things of that nature. So that's why you pay these HOA dues, right? So, but most people in an HOA community, they pay the dues, but if they were anything like myself back in the day, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I write a check and that's it. And, my money just kind of goes out somewhere. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't, when we first moved in here and I was writing the check, twice a year for the HOA dues, then I was just kind of like, okay, like you write the check and then it just kind of disappears and you don't really know where it's going unless you really start finding out. So, it goes to take care of things in the neighborhood, but like, what does it really take care of? Right. So, fast forward, the pool in our neighborhood started having all these issues. And then on social media, everything was just like brush fire shit. People were just like, people were pooping in the pool. It really wasn't people pooping in the pool as much as it was people weren't wearing, putting the right swim diapers on their babies. And so the poop was getting in the pool. Like we were having all this issue with crap, shit, poop. Okay. And well, now that we have social media, then because we have several social media platforms on our Facebook page on Facebook, then of course, all of the negative Nellies, all of the naysayers, they come out and they're just like, this is such a shitty pool, pun intended, blah, blah, blah. Like they're always like, just, it's just a place for people to like throw their stuff, right? And do the complaining and all of that. Well, it got to a certain point in time where for me, I was like, I am so over everyone complaining. Like I am so over this negativity because I could feel it in the neighborhood. And I just kind of felt like our neighborhood was just going downhill because all of these people were just coming out. I say all of these people, but there's usually like a handful or two that are saying stuff. And so I was just like, I'm really tired of this. So then I decided at some point, okay, I'm done with this. If I'm going to sit here and listen to all these people complain, and I'm done listening to people complain, and nobody is stepping up to really make the problem get resolved, then I'll step up. And then that's kind of how I became the chair of the pool committee. Now, did I know what I was really getting into? No, I didn't. And even Joe was like, babe, I've been the chair of a pool committee. You don't really know what you just got into. And I was like, yeah, I know. Let me have a sip of my root beer. Mm-hmm. But because I'm a 1, which means I do architect and builder energy, so I look to build things and create things. And Joe is a 4 in his birth number, so he does foundation. So the two of us together, we're very good about helping build foundations, right? So we were actually the perfect people to, come into this neighborhood now that the builders are out, the homeowners are in control of the board. It was really actually a good place for us to step in our community and help serve because we do foundation, we do building, we do architecting, we bring the pieces in and make that structure solid, and then we can pass it off, and then it's easier for other people. So we know where our strengths are and where we fit in. Well, at some point in time, as I've been on this pool committee, okay, I'm sitting here recalling like what's gone on the last 6 months. I was telling Joe this morning, I'm like, man, we've really done a lot. Like, we're like today, literally today, as I'm recording this video, I was meeting with the designer of the pool and the project manager and the crew that's actually beginning a remodel of the pool, just because we need some repairs. So we're actually kind of repairing and remodeling at the same time. And So I told him, I said, we've done a lot in a short amount of time to get from point A to point B to execution of the goal. And well, the board is up for election of new members in February. So the people on the current board, minus one of them, are like my husband, like Joe, and this other person is deciding, yeah, okay, we'll run again, because if we have another year, we can build another on top of this solid foundation. And of course, nobody in our neighborhood wants to step up, so that's another thing, is that you have these like keyboard warriors that'll come online and they'll like blow out the keyboard and complain and do all this other shit. But when you nail them with, hey, would you like to run for the board? Hey, would you like to come to a board meeting? Hey, would you like to volunteer for the committee on da 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 da? Then all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't want to. I don't have time. I'm busy. Da da da. Well, you know what? All of these other homeowners in this neighborhood too, I'm quite sure they're busy too, because at our last board meeting, minus the people on the board and the committees, we had 3 homeowners show up for a board meeting out of a neighborhood of 1,200 homes. If that is not a representation of how much people are in their own little world of self, then I don't know what is. Okay. And so I'm starting to notice that people are reclusing with technology. They really don't want to get out, or they don't even want to seek out the information. But then all of a sudden, if you hit people in their pocketbook, because our homeowners dues went up $99 a year. That's it. Our homeowners due is only $250. Like, it's $500 a year. Okay. And so now people are complaining because it went up $50 extra on their bill. But it's $8.25 a month extra, right? And the board can do a 20% increase without having to get the vote of homeowners. So if we were going to have our pool open by the summer, these repairs had to get done, or it probably wouldn't pass inspection, because we've had inspections on the pool. And it's bad because the builder who pulled out didn't do the repairs. Okay. So there's all this rigmarole going on. So this 20% increase had to happen. And in order for us to get this done, because again, not everybody pays their HOA dues, and not all of the homes are completely sold yet. So we're kind of in this fluctuation in our neighborhood. Well, so what ended up happening is Joe wrote a letter that explained all of, like, not all of it, but basically was explaining, hey, this is how much money we've saved on irrigation. We've cut back over here. We got a new pool company over here. We saved on landscaping. And with all of that, we've been able to get a new treadmill in the gym. We've been able to buy a new piece of exercise equipment. Now we're being able to start on the pool repairs. And he listed everything. So he handed it to the management company, because most neighborhoods have a management company, and then the HOA, the board of homeowners, works with the management company, right? So anyway, he sends this to the management company. They send it out in an email. Well, on social media, somebody had posted that the letter, right, that they had received in the email. And it was very good. I mean, they said, hey, if anybody didn't see the email today, here's what was sent out. Well, all of these other people are commenting, and they're like, this is such great news. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the hard work whoever is doing this is doing. Like, people are in gratitude. Imagine that. Because it's a very positive letter, very positive move towards action, execution steps for our neighborhood. And then as I'm sitting here getting dressed, and I'm like, why have I not felt the inspiration for today's video come in? And then lo and behold, I open up Facebook and I see this comment, and this person says, it literally starts out with, well, my concern is if we have saved all this money, or like something like, well, my concern is if we have saved all this money, then why are our HOA dues increasing? This doesn't make sense to me. And then mention and paid timely, and then dot dot dot, really, question mark, or exclamation point, like, and the energy behind it was just vile. And I was like, is that really the only thing you got out of the whole letter? Because there's a part in the letter that Joe was stating, hey, these are all the positive things that are going on. This is everything that's happening. And, based upon whether or not HOA dues are paid timely, we might be able to, in February, get new pool furniture, and we may be able to redo the deck on the pool. And so, like, she's over here like, paid timely, and I'm like, oh my god. And so when I read it, I was like, I literally, I felt the surge of rage enter my body, and my psychic eye was like, and I'm like, oh my god, what is clearing? So I sat there and I'm like, okay. So I wrote this person back in a comment. I I implemented my own keyboard warrior s, okay, because I kind of do PR for the neighborhood, not because anybody asked me to, but because I do, because I'm kind of at shut the fuck up unless you're going to get involved. Okay. And if you're not going to get involved and be a part of the solution, shut your freaking mouth, because you don't need to be complaining and stirring shit up when you don't have the information. Because remember, I'm a teacher. So I am about information. I am about information. I'm about communication. I'm about teamwork. I'm about, okay, let's move towards a positive solution and strategy. So when people start opening their mouth, running it, complaining, doing all kinds of freaking bullshit, I'm cussing a lot in today's raw, okay, then I'm like, you know what? Maybe you need to pull your head out of your ass and get some information before you open up your mouth and send out some unethical energy that you're just spewing out into the ethers that somebody else is going to pick up, because somewhere inside of you, you're running hate, anger, rage, whatever you're running, you know? And so, of course, being an empath, picking up feelings and emotions and running that through my system, it always works in my benefit one way or another if I pick it up, right? Because that means I'm clearing something. So it's beneficial sometimes for me to respond. So I wrote back, and this is why I'm so glad I had NLP in my ascension process, which is neuro linguistics programming, because you learn how to listen to people's words. You watch what their language says, like how they say it. And then I have the ability to feel everything. So I can feel everything behind the words and really what their intention is and things like that. Right. So my very first thing that I wrote back was, and because she had a comment in 2 sentences that were basically like, well, I don't understand. This doesn't make sense to me. What are you talking about? Like, it was like she was asking these questions. So I thought to myself, okay, she's asking questions. So I'm going to reply with questions. I'm going to match her and be in rapport with all of the questions. So I wrote back and I said, well, what would need to happen? I said, well, what type of information would you need in order for this to make sense to you? That was my first question. Okay. Because she's going to read that and be like, huh? And this is how I'm giving it back. Like, you're over here going, none of this makes sense to me. And you know damn well it has nothing to do with the freaking post on Facebook. It's probably something in that person's unconscious parts and their spiritual energy and something that happened to their day. And they happened to come across this, and then it pinged them. And then now all of a sudden, well, none of this makes sense to me. And they're having to go in and nitpick something apart in order to have an exchange in order to get the freaking information. Right. And I just so happen to be that, I'll step onto the field and let me say something. Okay. Because, God knows most people don't want to say anything, because most people just don't want to get involved and call people on their shit. So fine. I'll call it on. I'll get involved. Okay. So I said, well, what type of information do you need in order for this to make sense to you? And then I followed it up with, are you aware of the history of, and I said our neighborhood name of our neighborhood and what it was like when the builder was involved. And then I asked another question behind that. Are you aware of what the past HOA boards did that created a downfall in our finances as a community? Then I said, are you aware of what the new board is doing to help stop the bleeding of these finances? And then I said, are you also aware that we have a finance committee now? And then I said, and if you don't have an answer to any of these questions, then may I suggest that you attend a board meeting where all of this information has been presented, or elections are coming up in February. Perhaps you might want to run for the board so you can get the information, so you're not confused, so you can then figure out how things will make sense to you. Or maybe you might want to go and volunteer on the finance committee so you can see all the financial records in order for you to have the information, so now this can make sense to you. So do you see how I literally gave it all back to her? Because it was like, none of this makes sense to me. It was like this 2-year-old temper tantrum of none of it makes sense. And then I just came in and was like, as a teacher, let me ask you all these questions. What do you need to do to empower yourself in order for all this shit to make sense to you? Because clearly what doesn't make sense to you is all the positive shifts and transitions that your money is going to. Okay. So then at the end of it, I said, because she had made a comment that said, and if they have saved all this money for us, if they have saved all this money, then why have our dues gone up? And another person actually like clicked thumbs up. And I was like, oh, no. We are not going to allow this thread to go sideways. So then, and in that same comment section, I said, furthermore, I said, quote unquote, they have not saved all this money. And then I put in capital letters, I put, all of us homeowners have saved this money because, and I put in capital letters, homeowners have been looking at our books to see what needs to be repaired in our community. And due to those numbers, that is why there has been an increase in the dues. So, but in her mind, it was like, well, we saved all this money, so why do I have to pay more money? But what this person didn't have on the back end is you don't have all of the information about what this community has bled out in information, or not information. Diamond's barking. Thank you, Diamond. Get your voice. What, I wonder if it's my honey baked ham that's delivering. We ordered a honey baked ham for our Christmas dinner because they're so good, and it's supposed to be delivering today. So I'm wondering if it's delivered. But anyway, so thank you, Diamond. Diamond's up in the front barking. What is it, Diamond? What are you barking at? So, here, Diamond. What are you barking at? Is the ham here? Is the ham here? You see her? Is the ham here? Okay, thank you. So, anyway, I gave all the questions back to this person, and then I said, and this is why our dues have increased. So basically what I did in this roundabout way was, you dumbass, you're going to make a comment and you're going to complain. Everybody else has sat here, all positive comments. Oh, this is such a great piece of information. Thank you all so much for all the hard work you're doing for all of us. I'm so excited about these positive changes moving forward for our neighborhood, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, you have all these positive people, and then you have that one person that just has to, eh. It's like in the holidays when everybody's happy and jolly, and then you have that one person in the family that comes in and is like, well, I don't really understand why. Making that fucking ugly face, and you're like, really? That person's not being invited next year. You know what I mean? Because someone always has to freaking complain. And it's like, complaining gets us nowhere unless you're complaining like I am in a monologue, and you're sitting here laughing, going, I totally know what you're talking about, Shelby. And what is it about HOAs? Why all of a sudden in society do we have HOAs? Why? Why, people? Why? Because I guess we like to have pristine, clean neighborhoods. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, so I sat with this information, okay, as I replied to her and all that. And I literally thought to myself, I'm like, okay, you know, last week I was keyboard, you know, warrior princess, battling the social media fight when the 20%, you know, when the letters went out and the dues went up, okay? So I knocked all that down. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to be good today. Everybody, you know, positive letter, positive everything, everything's going to be great. And then you have that one comment. Now, I haven't seen any other comments since that because I got on this video. But as I'm burping. But anyway, so as I was sitting with this right before I got on here to record, I had this thought to myself, and I'm like, okay, this is not mine, but I'm running it. Because I had to think to myself, Joe wrote the letter. Okay, Joe's on the board, not me. I'm on the pool committee. I'm the chair of the pool committee. Two totally different things. Okay. So the board doesn't really interact with people because they're on the board, right? But I'm just a little, you know, person on the pool committee chair, like, so I can say something. So I'm like, okay, so Joe wrote the letter. He sent it to the management company. The management company emailed it out. Somebody copied and pasted it, put it into a Facebook social media thread, and that's how people are getting the information. So I thought to myself, what is it in Joe? Because he wrote the letter. So what is it in Joe that still needed to shift? Because in the comments, everything was positive, and then you had that one negative, and then you have that one negative comment, right? The person that can't get perspective, the person that can't see anything. And I thought to myself, So I texted Joe and I said, okay, I said, all the comments have been positive on all of this change that we're doing based off of the letter that you wrote to update the neighborhood. And I said, but we have one negative little Nelly. And I said, I've already gone to the keyboard to bash that shit and, you know, set the record straight, send the energy back. I said, however, what I'm looking, I was texting this all to him, and I said, so this was a complaint. And I said, and anytime you're about to go through a massive shift with yourself, I notice that you start complaining because you're it's like the turbine, you know, like that wind, that or that engine of a locomotive, like it starts turning. And so when it's turning, he doesn't really know what to do with it. So he just finds something to complain about because he's just got to say something because he hasn't like shifted it into airy fairyland like I did back in the day. And everything's just so grand and perspective and love and light. You know what I mean? Like his energy body hasn't shifted yet. His mind hasn't shifted all the way. So he's still like, which means I have more work to do as his female wife I say female wife, but you know, I'm female because the energy of a female brings the man up into his energies. I'm his wife. Okay, I'm going to take it all. So I thought to myself, oh my God, I still have more to do because this hasn't harmonized yet. So when I so when I texted him, I'm like, yeah, so you must be A, about to shift really big. B, this is the only thing this woman could complain about, was this little piece. And so you're almost there. Like I was like, you're just so close to the in the mind, right? To where we don't have to even bring forward these people anymore. Oh, and that was another thing. And she was like, so she had made a comment about, and if the dues are paid timely, because that was something Joe had written in the letter. So, and I had written in a question to her as well. I said, and are you aware that not every person pays their HOA dues? So I was really just like, I was asking all of these questions to basically just blow them out because they're going to have to read it. And then they have to sit there and look at all the questions that, you're going to ask a question, but you're being very negative and derogatory. And you're actually insulting the people who have worked very hard to make sure the community that you're living in is not watering city property the way we had been for all these years, that was draining almost 69 grand out of our account that could have gone back into things in our neighborhood we could have paid for. Okay. So, people just don't know unless they get involved. So I was like, okay, if that's all that she picked out and Joe wrote it, then it made sense to me with what Joe's going through in his world and how he's looking to shift and get on the other side of this clearing, which means I'm ready to shift to get on the other side of the clearing. Then this is where it showed up in our world. Okay. And I always tell people, because my mentor always said this to me, Shelby, when you're going to shift, like, do it in places where it doesn't matter. Like having a keyboard warrior exchange with somebody on social media and keeping it contained, that's a place where it doesn't matter. Okay. Because it's not going into my business. It's not going into my personal life. It's not going into my friendships. It's not going into any of that. It's going into a place that really doesn't matter. But it matters somewhere because it gives me the opportunity to use my voice, practice my skills, and shift the energy of our neighborhood. So it does matter. It's just in the grand scheme of things, it's not a place that is going to be detrimental if it went sideways. You know what I mean? Because I'm just having these comments with people in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like I'm having to work on it on a deal in my business or something like that. So, and that's the way I would rather do it. So with all of that being said, that's why I sat down and I'm like, what am I going to talk about today? And because I told Joe, when I shift, then I usually bring in what I'm shifting as Shelby, not shifting as Joe through Shelby. Okay. Because, one day I know I'm like, oh, I'm totally Shelby. I'm in my energy. And then the next day I'm like, oh God, I've got to clear his energy. Today I'm in his energy, clearly. Okay. Because yesterday I was in my energy and I had none of that shit happen. Okay. So, but I tell Joe the way I shift is I usually bring it in through working on my psychic website, Keen, because I'll usually bring in someone that has come in on a promotion and they really don't understand how this advisement works. And they just know the old school paradigm of, oh, can you tell me this person's feelings for me? And as someone like myself that's been in the industry for a long time, you get to a place where you're like, if anybody asks me that question again, I'm going to like freaking scream to the hills and back again and then some. Because as an evolved psychic, you can't tell somebody what somebody else's feelings are for them. It is a personal thing. Like, I don't know how they're feeling for you, Why don't you go ask them? Like you begin to realize like, but in the industry, that's what's been marketed. That's what psychics have done in the past. That's what some psychics still do. And they act like they have all your answers, and that I can tell you what this person is thinking about you, and I can tell you what this person's feeling for you. And because I have ethics and I know the other side of all this other stuff, I'm like, no, you can't say that. You're selling a lie. You can't tell somebody how this other person's feeling and thinking towards them. That's a personal space. But you can go into the energy, which is collective and universal, and you can read the energy and decide where that's at. So there's a lot of changes that have to be done in this industry. But like I told Joe, how it shows up in my world is I know when I've done a reset, because I'll bring in a couple of sessions that have to do with this very low hanging armchair psychic type of questions. And I'm like, oh God. Okay. But like I also tell Joe, I don't complain about it, because that isn't where I want to put the energy. So even when it shows up, even though I'm kind of like, oh God, and I know I've done a reset, I told Joe, I keep that to myself. I'm aware of it. In a couple of days, it's going to change, because I'm just moving through the frequency scale. So, it just is what it is. And then usually I deal with that and have the sessions and whatever. And then I get what I need from that. And then I'm good. And then, in a few days, I always skyrocket right back up to the higher frequency where I attract the higher frequency people. So I like this whole thing today in this video. I'm looking outside. I'm over here looking outside. We have these turtles on our, what is that thing called out there? A fence. So I'm looking at these decorative turtles. Yeah, quit complaining. Unless you're going to complain with intention. And if you're going to complain with intention, then that means there needs to be a lot of light behind it. There has to be that focus of, why would I complain, instead of doing an emotional complaint. Okay. Because emotion is just energy in motion. Well, if you just fling that emotion, well, that energy goes out and other people pick it up. That's why empaths really have to work on not picking everything up. And the only way they can do that is to go internally into their personal space and work on all of the reframes energetically in order to harmonize all of those thoughts, feelings, emotions, things of that nature. So that's why today, when this showed up, well, Joe had just complained when he left the house to go to a client because he was behind, he's running late, he does it to himself. And I'm just like, oh, here we go. And then boom, he's not even out of the house, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then that comment happened. And I'm like, that's what he brought in. So I sent it back to him like, hey, this is you, but I just handled it on social media because you can't. But be aware, you're going to buy me dinner tonight. Be aware, I cooked at home last night. I actually did a home cooked meal last night. Tonight, no, we're going to go have barbecue. Because I just processed that for you. Okay. Like I tell them, I'm like, that's usually how I make it up is, oh, I'm blown out. I can't cook. Okay. We're going to have to go to dinner, because it's true. I get so, blah, 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 and I'm like, no, I can't do it. Okay. I'm sorry. Like I had to process your emotion. So barbecue it is, right? But you learn that with your partner when all of this stuff happens, right? And I know Joe so well. So I just was like, okay, here you go. We're almost there. And I told him, I said, this is the weekend we have to shift big, because I can feel it. Like I can feel that we're literally about to, okay, kind of like how we exploded when we first came together and all of our parts like went everywhere. Well, I told him, I said, this time we're going to explode and we're going to explode into each other instead of like exploding outside of each other. So I gave him a timeline because I could feel it. And I told him, I said, because I always educate my man. And I said, okay, babe, I just want you to make sure that whatever you need to close out, finish up, whatever it is, get it done before the weekend. Because next week, specifically, we're going to be moving into a huge internal integration with ourselves. And so I pay attention to what he has that he hasn't finished yet. Like he's got a meat grinder that he's got to give back to one of our neighbors. Okay. Or there's some Christmas presents that he's wrapping that he's got to get that done. Okay. Or I call his street corner over here where I put all of his mail or boxes that get delivered or whatever. So there's a couple things over there he's got to clean up. Right. So I always pay attention to kind of where his subconscious is dropping things and you know, what he's got to clean up. So I let him know, like, okay, well, you got to make sure this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done, because you want all that energy done before this next step happens. Because it's also taking care of the ecology. Because, like, the meat grinder isn't his, so it takes care of the person whose meat grinder that is. The presents he has to wrap has to do with, you know, our son. So that has to get completed. And, you know, that energy has to be wrapped in it. So in the ethers of the ecology, everything's like nice and tidy. So there's things that you do to protect the space and to protect the space of others while you're going through the shift and the change work. So yeah, so that's what today's Shelby Raw is about, is quit complaining, because unless you're going to do something about what you're complaining about, then there is absolutely no purpose in what you're saying. Okay? And everybody else has to clean up your shit and they shouldn't have to do that. And then you have somebody like myself that gets to do this content to complain about quit complaining. Okay? So, to all you complainers out there, pointing to my husband first and foremost, okay, thank you, because I was able to get this Shelby Raw video done today. And there you have it. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to end it there. Next week, we're going into Christmas. So we will see what shows up in the jolly ho, 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 Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer energy for next week. Hopefully it's very calm and bright, kind of like this thing over here says. All this thing right here behind this Santa, that little tree that's sitting there, it says all is calm, all is bright. That is what I'm programming into next week. Okay, so with that said, thank you guys for listening, if you're still here, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Oh, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button, because that's the YouTube thing to say. Okay, bye.